Welcome to this month's edition of Curriculum Digest for Educational Leaders, brought to you by Rajgiri Media. This is your platform to engage with forward thinking research, leadership models, and transformative strategies shaping education today. This month, we explore the theme Leadership Rooted in Culture, Equity, and Innovation. These stories offer powerful reminders that leadership today isn't just about managing schools, it's about shaping systems, nurturing values, and driving sustainable change. Let's move on to the first story cultivating cultural self confidence through policy. We begin in China, where Chiang Liu from Zhejiang University City College published a 2025 study in Lex Localis, Journal of Local Self Government. The focus embedding cultural self confidence in local government higher education policies. Liu emphasizes that cultural confidence isn't abstract, it's built through values, social context, and personal identity. When local governments develop education policies, they must assess conditions of local autonomy and integrate socialist values and community identity and self belief. The study calls on policymakers to use education policy as a vehicle for cultural development, institutional improvement, and performance growth. It outlines a strategic approach. Policies must support cultural literacy, equitable access, and local heritage. This is a reminder higher education isn't just about academic rigor, it's also about cultural relevance and confidence. Leadership means connecting learning to identity. Our second story, leading with local values, the Parigeuing model. Next, from Indonesia, Parigeuing leadership, a culturally grounded leadership model explored by Persitio Agung Derman from Universities of Pendidikan, Indonesia, published in 2025 in JMKSP, Journal of Educational Leadership and Supervision. This qualitative case study examines the leadership style of the head of West Java Provincial Education Office. It draws from the Sudanese cultural values, particularly the concept of Dasa Pasanta, a framework rooted in respectful, dialogic communication. Paraguayan leaders led by listening, guiding, and motivating through culturally embedded methods through interviews, observations, and document analysis. The study builds a new model of inclusive, heritage informed leadership. For leaders everywhere, this research is a call to action. Look inward, explore the cultural codes of your community, integrate them into how you instruct, inspire, and lead. Let's move on to the third story from decolonization to curriculum integration in economics education. From South Africa, Habessa Vincent Molese of University of Limpopo published a 2025 study in the Interdisciplinary Journal of Education Research. The research reviewed 16 studies on integrating indigenous knowledge systems IKS into economics education. The study highlights gaps in teacher competency, lack of clear IKS guidelines in the CAPS curriculum, and insufficient professional development. Teachers are often left to improvise without systemic support. Recommendations include structured teacher training, content selection models, and curriculum reform that clearly defines which economic topics align with IKS. As educational leaders, our task is to institutionalize inclusion, not delegate it to individuals. Policy clarity and curriculum alignment are essential to ensure IKS integration becomes more than just intent, it becomes practice. Let's now move on to the fourth story building digital museums for social aesthetic education. In a world reshaped by pandemics, Xian Nangling, associate professor at Guangdong Construction Polytechnic and doctoral student at CITI University of Mongolia, studied the construction of digital art museums in the post COVID era. Published in 2025, the Journal of Aesthetic Education, the study argues that digital art spaces can extend aesthetic education beyond physical museums. Published in 2025 in the Journal of Aesthetic Education, the study argues that digital art spaces can extend aesthetic education beyond physical museums. This shift can support civic learning, social cohesion, and creative engagement on a national scale. The research calls for a national strategy that supports cloud based museum models, teacher access, and cross sector collaboration to strengthen social aesthetic education in public life. As leaders, we must think beyond buildings and budgets. Culture needs digital infrastructure, it needs vision, and it needs policies that make beauty, heritage, and expression accessible to all learners. Let's move on to the fifth story: mental health, equity, and the role of leadership. Finally, a timely topic for every school system. In a 2025 study published in the European Journal of Education Management, Joy Cleary of Southwest University, China, and Jacqueline from Protestant University of Rwanda examined how educational leadership impacts student mental health and equity. Through a synthesis of recent empirical studies, they analyzed three models: transformational leadership, trauma informed leadership, equity focused leadership. Schools with proactive leadership in mental health showed higher student engagement, emotional resilience, and academic success. But common barriers remain: limited training, fragmented policy, and scarce resources. The study urges leaders to embed mental health into social policy, develop community partnerships, and push for resource equity, especially for marginalized learners. This is your leadership frontier. Mental health is not extracurricular, it is fundamental. Equity is not a slogan, it's a structure. Be the architect of both. This month's research reminds us that educational leadership is cultural, strategic, and deeply human. From curriculum design to mental health, from tradition to technology, your role is pivotal. Here's your leader challenge of the month. Choose one area: curriculum, policy, professional development, or well being. Now, let's move on to the closing thoughts. This month's research reminds us that educational leadership is cultural, strategic, and deeply human. From curriculum design to mental health, from tradition to technology, your role is pivotal. Here's your leader challenge of the month. Choose one area: curriculum, policy, professional development, or well being, and audit it through the lens of inclusion and cultural relevance. Ask whose voices are missing, what values are driving decisions, and what can I change this month. Leadership today means honoring the past, embracing the future, and building systems that serve every learner. Thank you for joining us for Palikuram Digest for Educational Leaders, presented by Rajagiri Media. We'll see you next month with more research driven insight and real world impact.